This is a very special show we have for you today, right ahead of the very important visit of Elon Musk here to India for a 2-day visit. He'll be meeting a slew of policymakers and business leaders, including, of course, our Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. So this is Musk Means Business. This is a special show which we have for you on ET Now. What will be the agenda of this meet? What will be the size and scope of the meeting he will be doing with all the other stakeholders? And we as citizens, what does it mean for us now that we are looking at forging very meaningful partnerships with global business leaders and their companies? I have with me my colleague Sumit and Srishti joining us first, and then we'll have experts joining us. Hormaz will be joining us because Tesla is something which everybody is looking forward to. We'll also be joined by Pankaj Morarka, and we would have a very exciting startup coming in, Mr. Ravi Chandran of Agnikul, to talk about how the space economy and the space related the companies over here have the future from here on and what are the economics behind it. So this is a special show which we are bringing for you. But before that, let's go to Sumit and Srishti. Sumit, so let's start. How important it is and what could be the the size and scope of the meetings which are there lined up?
Billionaire Elon Musk, who is Tesla's co-founder, is going to start his meeting in India with his visit in the next 2 to 3 days. He's scheduled to meet Prime Minister Modi of India and other officials of government, along with certain ministers and industrialists. He's also going to meet startup co-founders and founders in space sector. Space is one area where he's very enthusiastic, and India is also very keen to invite investment in startup as well as electric vehicle manufacturing. Tesla, it is being reported that going to announce $2 to $3 billion investment in India. It's already sourcing parts worth $1 billion every year. That is going to go up to $2 billion this year. For Tesla, India is an important market at a time when sales in many other markets are coming down. China especially, where BYD and other EV makers are giving a very tough fight to Tesla. In the long term, India is going to be an important market, and earlier also reports said that Tesla can look at having or manufacturing a special India-oriented vehicle that can be sold throughout the world. But what are the current plans? How much of that investment will be coming to India in what span of time? That's all going to be very public. It's possible in the next few days when Elon Musk begin his India visit.
Right. Thanks for that, Sumit. Whenever we speak about Tesla or we speak about Elon Musk, the EV ecosystem is something which comes into focus. And we are also here back home in India. There's a lot of stuff happening in the EV ecosystem. Srishti is here. How Tesla's footprint in India could actually change or actually impact the ecosystem here. Srishti?
Well, as we know, the EV penetration in the four-wheeler segment is around 2 to 3%, but that's expected to grow phenomenally well in the times ahead. And India is all excited about Tesla's entry. But it is not just the case that India is looking for Tesla's entry. Seems like that the Tesla also wants India. Why so? Because there are some of the concerns related to the sales slowdown of Tesla in the global markets, where China, their second biggest market, is getting hit in terms of sales, and then Tesla is eyeing at India, where they are not just expected to import cheaper cars after the new EV policy, but other than that, reports also suggest that Tesla will be eyeing to produce affordable EV cars in India and then export to the world. So that will be a win-win situation for both the parties that are involved. But let's have a look at the EV ecosystem in terms of the pricing and what models Tesla will be getting in India. So if we look at the pricing of Tesla's available model right now, then the cheapest amongst them is Model 3, priced around 33 to 37 lakhs in Indian rupees, and the most expensive is Model X. But going ahead, there are reports that somewhere around 20 lakh of rupees, Tesla will be coming out with their EV model, and that could actually be a threat to some of the leaders in the EV space like Tata Motors, which currently holds around 70 to 80% share in the Indian EV ecosystem. M&M also has some footprint with just XUV 400 at 16 lakhs of rupees. And other than that, we have players like VinFast, BMW, MG. They are all present in the EV space, but they are all skewed in the premium category. So the first battle is in the premium category, but with the affordable EVs, if at all that happens with Tesla, that could be something that can change the ecosystem. Back to you.
Right, thanks very much for that. Let's take it forward with Hormaz Sarabji also joining us, Pankaj Morarka and Mr. Ravi Chandran, all three of them Mr. Ravichandran brings to the table is understanding of the space economy, how Indian startups stands to gain. Hurmaz, of course, is a legend in the auto space, and all of that. How should you and I benefit from it, or do we have a play? Can we have a foot in that growth which lies ahead in this space? How to benefit from the stock market angle? Pankaj Murarka will help us understand. Hurmaz, let's come to the most sexy part. How is the Tesla entry? And it has come after a long of back and forth, a lot of negotiation. Both have come in midway. My way or highway hasn't lasted. Both of the Indian government and the policymakers, along with the Tesla as a company, both have come midway. It appears the progress has happened from here on. How will it change the EV ecosystem from the not only from the Tesla as a car point of view, but also the suppliers, the distribution, all of that? In your view, will the costs come down and more more business will be done around that now?
Well, I think one thing's for sure is, we know that Tesla and especially Elon Musk, they're really the poster boy of the EV world. So it's created a lot of interest back in the EV space, especially in India. And that's a good thing. It'll make everyone think more electric, even the consumers, industry, so on and so forth. But, I think yeah, even if you're a superstar like Elon Musk, making an entry into India isn't very easy. I think, our core of our market is really, really at the budget end. And though Tesla has had plans with Project Redwood to kind of produce an affordable car, it really remains to be seen what the specs of that are, however much localized it is. So clearly they'll be building a supply chain. The reports of Tesla investing a couple of $1 billion in India, that seems to be, a pretty large sum. Obviously, a lot of that will go towards building the supply chain, might even have partners to do that. But at the end of the day, it's really making a product that's very nuanced, very suitable for this market. And what I'd like to say is, they were testing the Model 3, and they were planning on launching that. But from what we hear, that was stopped. And one of the issues with the Model 3 was very poor ground clearance. In fact, I had reviewed one. And for the Auto Car Show, which was played on this channel. And one thing was here that Model 3 in its form from the US was hitting almost every speed breaker. So these, a lot of kind of adaptation has to be done to India. Obviously, they won't launch it like that. So it's not easy. And I think, while it's great Tesla is coming, I don't think they're going to run away with the market as a lot of people imagine.
Very important point. That's a very important point. In fact, Tesla and a lot of excitement around it on one side, but Indian auto companies, both listed and unlisted, have themselves upping their own game, sharpening their products and their acceptance as well in the market from their own EV offerings. Pankaj, you track the market with a magnifying glass. There are half a dozen, or I'll say longer list of the ecosystem participants like auto ancillary companies, battery companies that are doing a lot of work on the EV side. How they stand to gain with this opportunity? Obviously, others are also doing it, but this will definitely be a big bang splash in the EV space.
Absolutely, Ajay. I think, as almost said, Tesla and Elon is a poster boy globally, so it does bring a lot of attention in that sense. And having said that, I firmly believe that it's very evident that India will become the third largest passenger vehicle market in the next 5 to 7 years. And in that sense, any global player cannot afford not to be in India. And also, it's very evident from the trends that we're seeing, the future of automobile is electric, irrespective of whatever it's two-wheeler, three-wheeler, passenger vehicles, and so on and so forth. Indian companies have a significant market share when it comes to auto ancillaries in global exports. India is a key sourcing destination for global companies. You talk about any OE globally, be it, let's say, Daimler, Volkswagen, or even for that matter, Tesla as well. Tesla already sources from some of the Indian vendors for their cars, which are sold in US and Europe. So India, from the auto ancillary perspective, we have a strong manufacturing base. We have the technology and know-how which India has built over the last 20 years. And India auto ancillary companies work with global OEs on their new products and developments in that sense. And so we have a fairly robust auto ancillary exports in that sense. So I think it will benefit in both sense. One, obviously, Tesla coming here and the Big Bang launch will expand, howsoever small that market at this point of time at the luxury end of electric vehicles. I still think it will expand that market, and it will also help in evolution of the market at the mass segment in that sense. And also, Tesla, they'll also bring their global vendors as well, and more importantly, given the indigenization clause, they will increase their sourcing as well from India. So I'm sure a host of auto ancillary companies will benefit. And as I said, there are already a handful of companies from India which are already supplying different kind of parts, be it the DC motors or something, or the lightings and stuff like that to Tesla globally.
Pankaj, just for the benefit of our viewers, I'll just lay down some of the companies which are working closely with Tesla and other companies in the EV space, and then you tell me where the opportunity lies. Shina, I'll just come to you in a moment. SK, for example, is already supplying bearings, Sundaram Fasteners, gear transmission, Suprajit is doing light duty cables, Motherson, Sandhar Tech, Varick, and of course, we saw the Big Bang tie-up which Excite recently did for two Asian companies for EV batteries. Where does the maximum amount of opportunity lie, Pankaj? I don't want you to take names, but tell us the category where the big opportunity lies from making money from listed point of view.
Apart from what you said, there are other companies as well.
Sure.
Ajay, name some companies like Sona Comstar or Varroc and some of the other companies which work with Tesla and global EV players as a part of their global supply chain value chain in that sense. When it comes to EVs, all of us know that the value of the battery becomes very significantly higher in an EV versus in a normal ICE vehicle. And plus, the replacement cycle of the battery is probably shorter in that sense. So obviously, but apart from that, there are other components where, for example, when you talk about Motherson Sumi, the wiring in an electric car could be 2.5, 3x times what it normally is in an ICE car. And likewise, there are other components as well. So I think the opportunity is very significant. More importantly, what I've seen over the last few years is Indian auto ancillary companies have made investments in their business over the last 5 years in terms of building capabilities, in terms of developing new products which are required for the EV, and they've been working with a lot of these global OE on the EV side. And as I said, some of these companies have already they already supplied. More importantly, they have built a sizable order book on the EV side with global companies as well as with some of the local companies in that sense. So I think the opportunity is immense, and it will be supported by not only by export, but also by the fact that India's domestic automobile market, be it passenger vehicles or two-wheelers and other things, will also have a very healthy growth over the next 10 years.
Right. Srinath, let's come to the the space economy, because Starlink is a very major player launched by SpaceX. Almost 4,200 low Earth orbit satellites are already functioning by Starlink, and Starlink also aiming, or at least looking for some slice of the big internet pie in India, which is up till now dominated by the Indian telecom players like Jio and Bharti, and of course the other player is Vodafone. How does that kind of change the competitive landscape, the quality of the service for our consumers, etc., in your view?
I think it's a very interesting time to be using, LEO orbital satellites, low Earth orbit satellites, for actually providing direct internet. I think that's a model that even India is not fully, the Indian telecom companies have not fully embraced yet. It's sort of like the return of the satellite phone market in some way, because people are now talking about internet directly to their phones or internet directly to laptops without any other, intermediary in the process. So I think it'll be. I don't know if that is going to be part of the conversations that is going to be in this agenda, but it's definitely an interesting time for all of us, the other startups as well, and us to be meeting and sharing our thoughts with Elon Musk. I think in a way, India is now at a point where privatization, particularly even from a startup standpoint, has been enabled by the government. So it's a very interesting time for us to be actually talking to someone like him, and probably hearing his thoughts about what we are doing, and looking ahead at what we can do together probably.
Important point. I know. Just to tell our viewers that Srinath would be meeting Mr. Musk along with a bunch of other startup entrepreneurs with the idea that what kind of collaborative effort can be done with this big opportunity which is opening up for Tesla and Mr. Musk over here. But the big caveat is, and our policymakers were very clear about it, that they need to work at every level on the ground with Indian vendors and the ecosystem. Srinath, even the manifesto by Mr. Modi this time had a very clear mention of growing the space economy. You and your friends in the startup space, what kind of business opportunity lies there? This is one of the doors which is opening, but beyond this also there's a lot of work happening. We are sending a lot of satellites in the space. What all categories are you guys working on, and where are the business opportunities lie?
I think one of the big things that have happened positively is with the opening up of the space sector to private players is in every aspect of space sector. It could be the launch segment, which is about building launch vehicles and rockets to take objects to orbit, or in the satellite segment where you're building satellites, communication systems, imaging systems, or in the ground segment as well, where you're collecting all the data from top and distributing it here, processing it here, and then actually providing it to an end user. All segments of this sector are actually starting to grow. We are seeing startups come up in every possible area, and thanks to InSpace and thanks to ISRO and all the support that has been coming from the government directly, to make sure that if there's a private player with a good idea, with an honest intention to make something interesting here to solve a global space problem, I think today we have the legal framework for that, right? And so I am seeing startups come up in literally every aspect of space. I know people who are doing launch vehicles, of course that includes us as well. We know people doing satellites, we know people who are doing companies which are trying to monitor space debris, and name it, and there is a startup already in India, probably at its early stages, but they are a very focused group of people working on solving these global problems. So it's going to be a very exciting time, I think, for the next 10 years or so, for India to actually, expand into through the private players into capturing a large chunk of the space economy.
There's money coming in. Are investors warming up to this opportunity? Clearly, government knows, and that's why they've been taking decisions like opening up of FDI. A bunch of startups have launched, as you were saying, the entire value chain. But is money coming in? Are there deals happening, inquiries from early stage growth kind of venture capitalists or investors, not only from India but abroad as well?
Absolutely. I think a lot has changed in the last 3-4 years. Probably when we started, and this was 2017 or so, it was definitely, not one of the most, favored sectors for investors here. Probably because there was also a little bit of lack of awareness, right? And space was considered something that usually only governments do, and space was considered something that is extremely long lead time with very high risk and so on. But that model has actually, been completely changed in the last 3-4 years. We're seeing a lot of investors have, very good appetite. And I'm talking not only about some of the small funds, but the larger funds, family offices across the world, some of the sovereign wealth funds as well. So I think everyone is now actually carving out a piece of their portfolio allocation to be focused on startups in space sector. I mean, within the private equity and the VC community. So space is getting very mainstream that way.
Space in your portfolio for space. That's the word, I guess. Hormaz, you meet the top industrialists, the business guys basically in auto space every now and then. If you were to, I'm not sure whether you're meeting Musk, but Tesla India team, I'm sure you're interacting with. If you were to give a couple of suggestions or to how they should navigate the Indian auto space, what would they be? 2-3 points. How can they really make their mark in the mind of the consumer as well and in the market as well?
Well, I think the most important thing is to understand the consumer, which is very, very difficult for a lot of global OEMs to do. And, a company like Maruti, I think, does it best. That's why it is where it is. So, I think one thing also, let's not forget that the auto industry isn't just EVs. Everyone's rushing in right now with EVs, and Tesla's coming in with EVs. There is still a huge challenge as far as home charging goes, and that's turning out to be the biggest hurdle. So, even if Tesla puts some superchargers and stuff like that, I mean, still people want home charging. And this is actually a global issue. One of the reasons why, EV sales have flattened. It's just that absolute convenience of home charging to charge as and when you want without having to be in a queue or worry about whether your charger is working or not, which is really the absolute one single critical point which is make or break for a lot of EV buyers, especially in India. I mean, just to give you a statistic, about over 90% of Nexon EV buyers all have home charging. Now, what that goes to tell you is so many people didn't buy the car because they didn't have home charging. So this one thing is a make or break. And it's not so easy to get in a lot of the high rises and societies which and RWAs which are having a problem giving that. So I think number one, listen to the consumer. I think they are very cost conscious. I mean, value conscious, no longer cost conscious, willing to spend if it has the right amount of equipment. Obviously, cars have to come with all the right bells and whistles. The onboard tech is becoming more and more important than how the car drives. And actually, in that sense, it plays a bit to Tesla's strength because they are really the software kings as far as EVs go, and even performance, battery range, all that sort of the EV stuff is good. The non-EV stuff, a lot of the legacy players do have a lot of strengths. Which again is where Tesla is, not as good. But I think, I've just driven this BYD Seal and I'm just completely blown away with it. So, you've also got this prospect of some Chinese companies making a kind of a side entry with as minority stakeholders and joint ventures, which is another kind of an angle to think about. So, but again, it's all in the EV space. I think we are going to be an ICE market for a long time. And, legacy companies are still strong in that. And, I think they're talking about 30% of EV penetration by 2030. There's no way that's going to happen given the current infrastructure challenges we have. So I think, don't panic. I think, it's EV transition is going to be a much longer than what people think.
Yeah, EV may become one of the meaningful, but it will not dominate the entire space for a long time. But that's a very important point you brought up, Hormaz. It's beyond Tesla as well. There are a lot of Vietnamese companies which are looking at making an entry here. I want to understand Tata Power. We speak to them very regularly. They are kind of upping their game in charging infrastructure. What is your observation on the progress we are making? When we say we, I mean to say the energy companies as well as policy makers, because it's a very ground level and a very regional play. Big city to another, things may differ. What about highways, municipalities, all of that? How is the progress on charging infrastructure happening? Is it lagging big time?
Well, Tata Power, I have to say, they've taken the lead and they're really number one in this space. But again, sometimes, being first, you've got others which come out with, frankly, better quality chargers. I mean, Tata Power, mainly 30 kilowatt chargers, not very fast. A lot of them don't work everywhere, though they are. So it's charging is still a hassle. You've got to have an app, you have to download it. It takes time to boot up the unit to power your EV. But honestly, I don't think the charging infrastructure on the highway is the problem. EVs in India have turned out to be urban phenomenons. People use it in the city and they make fantastic city cars. But you should have access to a wall box charger at home. That's really what makes a difference, because no one wants the inconvenience of even having to wait 15 or 20 minutes or half an hour at a charging point. You may have a vehicle there before you. It's hassly to use. So really the inconvenience is still there using public charging. Vis-a-vis the absolute super convenience of having it at home is like having a petrol pump at home. It's really the absolute opposite extreme. And I think this issue still is the biggest issue. And again, talking about public charging, all the discoms, there's a lot of issues, even on-ground issues, just getting the right amount of power supply, the transformer capacity, it's still not sorted. So I think, clearly, I think this is going to remain, in my mind, a big challenge going ahead.
Okay, I'll have Pankaj have the last word. Pankaj, I know you will not talk stocks, but let's put it in categories. Would you play a wire harness company? Would you play a tire company or a battery company or a charging infra company? Where would you find highest amount of comfort, which may actually do very meaningful work in the entire EV ecosystem, not only Tesla?
So, Ajay, we open to looking at companies across the spectrum, all that you mentioned, and probably much more in that sense. And in fact, we already own some of these companies. I think the opportunities are across the segment. I, to an extent, agree with Hormoz that there are significant challenges in terms of creating the ecosystem and putting the infrastructure in ground. And but I think things will happen over a period of time. Maybe and markets are always forward-looking, so markets tend to discount the future well in advance in that sense. So, for example, we own a company called Exide Industries. Exide is the first company to set up a on-ground lithium-ion battery plant in India near Tirupati, and probably expecting that plant. They already meaning the capital expenditure on the plant is already on, and probably they expected that plant should see commercial production probably by January, February next year. And they're making a 4,000 crore investments in that. I'm sure many more plants will come up in that sense, but we believe that that's a first one, and Exide should see they've already tied up with a couple of OEs for which they made announcements a few weeks back in that sense, which is an endorsement of their underlying technology and so on, kind of a thing. Likewise, we own some of the other companies which are in the whole value chain of EVs, like Sona Comstar and Varroc Engineering, which supply either the BLDC motors or the lightings to some of those EV companies globally, as well as to the we've seen a fair degree of penetration in the two-wheelers when it comes to EVs already now. So my experience, one of the key inflection point is when you have 5% market share coming in for a category. That's where you really see a big takeoff happening in the new technology or new product. So last year, we had 5% of two-wheeler sales coming from electric vehicles, which effectively hoping that that should accelerate from here on in that sense. So we like companies across the value chain, while the transition could be slow and gradual to begin with over the next few years. As we in India, whenever we have new technology, new evolution, it's always my experience of investing over the last 25 years. It's always a two-step forward, one-step backward story. So we'll have our own set of challenges in terms of execution. I agree that we are with executors and they're constrained from governments in terms of funding. But eventually, I think the ecosystem will evolve, and I see from a slightly more medium to longer term perspective, huge opportunities there.
Excellent. All right, gentlemen, all three of you, Hormaz, Pankaj, and Srinath, thank you very much for joining us today on this very special telecast, Musk Means Business. What are the opportunities and what are the challenges? It can't be a one-sided opportunity and it takes time. But of course, there's a progress definitely happening in all these directions. Thank you very much for helping us viewers understand this important visit by a visitor, Mr. Musk. Everybody is looking forward to it. We will be reporting minute details of all the meetings Mr. Musk is having along with Mr. Modi as well. Thank you very much for watching. Keep yourself